Delivering construction projects on time and within budget has unfortunately been the exception rather than the norm in the MEP industry of late. While most civil and MEP contractors as well as consultants dipped into their war chest to carry them through 2020 and into 2021, there were a few others who rose above the rest, tapping into the immense strength of their people, processes, collaborative workflows, and advanced technologies. One of the major success stories for Dubai in 2020 and early 2021 was the completion of the Aquaventure Waterpark expansion project at the Atlantis Hotel on Palm Jumeriah, which featured the addition of approximately 44,000 square meters of space. 28 new rides were added, including the world's tallest waterslide of its kind, the longest family water coaster in the world, and the tallest vertical drop body slide in the Middle East, as well as the region's first cliff jumping experience. Yet behind all of these amazing rides lies some pretty impressive engineering as well. To share exclusive details on this amazing project, which saw the addition of 14 kilometers of process piping, 1 kilometer of beachfront, 110 water pumps, and more, we have 5 top panelists joining us on this edition of Let's Talk MEP. Without further ado, let's welcome our panelists for the day. Jason Sams, the General Manager Construction at Khan-Sahib Civil Engineering, Darren Cook, the Contracts Manager at Khan-Sahib Civil Engineering, Clive Parsons, the Lead Project Manager at Turner & Townsend, Basil Alarbid, the Project Director at JLW Middle East, and of course, Rami Bufarhat, the Chief Operating Officer at JLW Middle East. Gentlemen, thank you for being here and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Jason, let's start off right off the bat. Could you give us an overview of this project, the Aquaventure Waterpark expansion project?
Sure. So the Aquaventure Phase 3 expansion was the second expansion to the water park since its original build. Provided 44,000 square meters of additional park space. It was very important to Khan-Sahib, primarily because an important project on an important asset, and for a client, ICD and Atlantis the Palm. We started getting involved in the project with Turner & Townsend and DSA in maybe about the spring of 2019, when the guys asked us for some buildability and program advice. We went on to tender the project then in late 2019, and we were appointed around about December, just before the new year, going into 2020. Extremely important project due to the size. It was a 1-year program, so key for Khan-Sahib in terms of turnover and for the business for 2020.
Thank you, Jason. Well put. Darren, could you walk us through the exact complete scope of work that Khan-Sahib had on this project?
Yeah, sure. So our scope of works is, as we approached site and got onto site, it was a blank canvas, and when we got there, it was the beach had been renovated, and then basically our works were the Triton Tower, the full tower, which is where you see all of the main slides, all of the construction work involved in that, all of the civils works, the finishes. And around the bottom of Triton Tower, the 6 pools that are around the bottom of Triton Tower, that was in our scope also. And then as you head back towards the Atlantis, the existing hotel, there's Action River across through the park, and all of the civil works involved in that was our scope of works, along with the other buildings, the outbuildings around the river, which support F&B outlets, kiosks, and other children's towers and infants towers towards the existing hotel. In addition to that, we've done all of the pipe work, and the guys will give you a little bit more detail on that later on, but we've done all of the pipe work, all of the MEP installations. So basically, we've done the full system, with the exception of the slides were installed by a company from Canada, and the soft landscaping was carried out by others. Other than that, the full scope was Khan-Sahab's.
That sounds quite comprehensive. Clive, Jason mentioned that you were involved in the project, and I believe you were a client representative on the project. Could you go over your role on the project as well?
Yeah, sure. So Turner & Townsend has been appointed directly by Atlantis the Palm to lead the project. we provided cost and project management services for Atlantis the Palm. Our role was from planning and overseeing until execution and ultimately handover of the project. As the Turner & Townsend project lead, it was my responsibility to encourage the collaboration of all of the contractors involved for the successful completion of the project. We also did the tendering and the procurement of all of the client direct packages as well as the contractors on the project.
Thanks for that. Rami, this comes to you next. You were involved within the MEP scope of the project. Could you give a little bit of detail on your involvement as well?
Without going into too many specifics on the systems, because Basil's probably be the best to answer, what we were engaged with CancerHub for the full MEP scope, which included the HVAC, plumbing, electrical, drainage, specialist fire, LV power distribution, lighting, ELV, BMS, AV, security, and fire alarm. So for us, Aquaventure was sort of unlike any other because of the sheer diversity of the project. It's a theme park. There's 15 individual buildings, which we were all sort of responsible for. The ranges of the buildings stemmed from a main feature of the park, the Triton Tower, which is the world's tallest slide. And it was also where all the major plant and the pumps were contained for the services in the water park from an MEP perspective. So the diversity for us on this project, unlike the other projects that we'd engaged on, which were typically larger hotel type projects, this had 3 or 5 different diverse factors that we all had to sort of go into. So initially we were responsible for the MEP portion when it came to the engineering and the delivery. But as we went on through CancerHub and the client's intervention, because they looked at our engineering strength, they saw that we would probably be, we started to take on some of the specialist packages like the pool. So by the end of the job, we were executing the MEP, but we were also responsible somewhat for the pool pumps and the equipment that were procured in coordination with CancerHub. So just something that I wanted to add as well was there was a milestone on this project, which was the civil defence approval. So we worked very closely with the client and with CancerHub and the engineers on the project, and we actually got the civil defence approval first time round, which is a rarity usually on projects.
For definite, yeah.
Yeah, but we've become kind of accustomed to it, Jason. So having us on the project and having our design and build guys work on the project allowed us to sort of use those relationships that we would have had with the authorities to understand exactly what they wanted at inspection. And we got that first time round for this. So this was for such a bespoke project, it's an accomplishment for the entire team.
Kudos to you, and that's quite comprehensive as well, Rami. Jason and Darren have mentioned the scale of the project, Clive, and Rami mentioned the diversity within the project, as well as a milestone in terms of approvals, achievement. The next question comes to you, Basil, in terms of you were the MEP project director on the project, but this also happened at a trying time during COVID when we had a constant change in the rules, where there were lockdowns, where there were precautionary measures in place. What was this project of this scale like for you?
When we have started this project on end of Jan and February, you know that the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, was across the globe and start affecting all the construction, sites. We believed, and we have started from the beginning that the good planning and it is the essence of the successful completion of the project. So we worked with the project team from PMC to main contractor, Khan Sahib, and all the parties. And we have catered for all the issues we might face during the execution of the project. And this is starting from the engineering to procurement to logistic and the resources. Either it's our own resources or our specialist subcontractor and the other subcontractors. And we have done a lot of coordination meetings with the project team, a lot of meetings and coordination in order to overcome all the problems that we might face. And the planning at the end was the successful part of the project.
Just to give you a look at this project, we started the project with no intention of having COVID and COVID restrictions coming in. We priced the project that way. And then before we really started, COVID didn't hit, but COVID restrictions hit, and we faced all that learning process for the entire UAE, basically, and the entire world of what we do in COVID. So stop, start, isolate 2 layers. We faced so many different procurement issues.
I could imagine.
So all of those were well coordinated between our teams.
Yeah,
I mean,
and the rules weren't clear at the beginning. We were trying to unravel the rules and what we could and couldn't do. And literally, as Rami said, we literally just got started on the project, and the COVID shutters came down. So the planning was constantly evolving, and we had to be light on our feet to keep the project running.
And from what you've said, Basil, Rami, and Jason, is there was a great focus given to planning and coordination. But I want to take a step back, because as Rami rightly mentioned, there were a lot of projects that you couldn't possibly plan for COVID-19. We didn't know what was coming. We didn't know at what intensity, what scale it would hit. Even things as simple as getting workers to site and the logistics behind that. And Clive, this next question comes to you. Basil mentioned procurement issues, supply chain issues. These were issues that the industry faced at length. Everybody within the industry faced. And to a large extent, these have become excuses for project delays, for cost overruns, for time overruns. How is it that this project, specifically the Aquaventure Waterpark expansion project, was able to complete the project within time and within budget?
Yeah, quite right. I mean, obviously we couldn't proactively plan this, so it was a reactive planning. As soon as COVID hit us, we immediately formed quite a few strategic plans, one of them being tackling our supply chain, how we're going to deal with it. The client gave us additional areas, laydown areas, so we procured, instead of procuring in-time materials, we've procured ahead of time, bulk materials, and we try to use these materials in such a way that we don't run out. Another strategy that we implemented for the logistics and the welfare was splitting our resourcing and staffing in half. So we would have a 2 shifts, effectively, over a 24-hour period to keep that social distancing and keep our busing as per the guidelines that was new to all of us. So in terms of the budget, the client had extremely stringent budget aspirations. So with the contractors, we had numerous value engineering workshops, which we ultimately implemented these value engineering workshops, as well as industry best practices that the contractors brought to the table. And this is how we end up meeting the project budget. This was a difficult project. It was extremely hard work, and I think the dedication of this project team is ultimately what was the driving force behind the success of the project.
The dedication of this team, that goes to you, Rami. You've always been one to say that I want to work with the right people. That's been your motto for a while now. And you believe that working with the right people can make a project complete and hit its deadlines even when it's under duress. How were you able to achieve that on a project of this scale? And what was it like, if you could walk us right from the tendering process to its completion, what was it like at various stages, handling challenges, but doing it in a collaborative environment?
If we start from the beginning, tendering-wise, we always wanted to work with Kansahab. We've been trying to work with Kansahab for a while. We weren't successful. The reasons why was they're a Tier 1. They're known as a Tier 1 in the industry. They've delivered an array of different type of projects, bespoke projects at that as well, like this one. They're known for their quality, like us. They're known for their engineering, like us. But what attracted us to them was their reputation for, one, this is a tendering stage, being able to turn down work. So it's a lot easier for a Tier 1 contractor to win work than it is to turn work away. So it's a testament to the type of management. So that gives a good indication usually. 2, they're known to partner with their MEP subcontractors. At least that's what we'd heard. And it's also a testament process project. So working together sort of to achieve a common goal, establish a common direction, and not unilaterally. Not unilaterally. At least that's how they made us feel. So we were awarded the project. We started the project, COVID hit. So Clive's mentioned all the difficulties and how we all worked together. I mean, some of the other things that we did, which was discussions that we had, was we decided, right, we need to isolate our staff from other projects and isolate them all the way back at the labour camp. These are the type of things that we sort of work together because what you could have, if you had all your labour sitting in one labour accommodation, you could have 1 or 2 individuals from a project unrelated affect the entire stream of work with all your clients. So we did that.
Yeah, that was extremely important to manage our labour and the staff. Obviously, we experienced COVID cases, and the close contact rules and the spreading of those cases was something that was key to control. So yeah, we worked with JLW and our other subcontractors to make sure that we had those sort of procedures and processes in place to try and ultimately the goal was to keep that project moving. Right. And on this project with a limited program, absolutely paramount.
You also came to us at one stage, Jason, and you said, look, we're going to decide to accelerate certain elements. Accelerate, not in the client's sense, but in the real practical sense of the job.
Not in the contractual sense.
Accelerate the certain elements of works to get the work done. So we looked at it. We worked on it together. It meant for us having our supply chain wanting to receive payments early. We echoed that to CancerHub. They said fair enough after a bit of toing and froing, and they did. They paid us they actually paid us before they got paid on a number of occasions to accelerate our supply chain. And then, just to give another example, where they supported us as a partner, there was a procurement issue where one of the specified vendors knew they were specified and were not willing to compete. We'll leave names out. Post the award. And it was a significant amount. All their competition, very close in quality and workmanship, were significantly lower than they were. We brought it to CancerHub's attention. They brought it to the client's attention, and it got resolved. But without their insisting, as a main contractor, this wouldn't have been resolved. And they insisted in such a way that it was as if it was their own procurement item. Right. So this is just another example of how they sort of partnered with us.
You've given a lot of examples that on other projects would probably have not gone the same way that it did on this project. And I can take scores of examples again. But Darren, the next question comes to you. For someone who manages projects directly, you've probably know the impact that variations, the claims, the disputes can have on a project of this scale, but also on the design intent of the project, also on the working relationship between the various stakeholders across the supply chain, right? From the client and the civil contractors all the way to, as Rami mentioned, specified vendors. What made this project different, and what decisions did you take as the main contractor to make that working relationship different and help this project complete within budget and ahead of schedule?
Yeah, so I think the guys have touched on this, and I think I can wrap it up by just saying it really is about people. That's the difference that this project is from every other project we do, or majority of projects we do here in the UAE. It's the people involved in it, and that really started with the client. That started at the top from ICD and Atlantis, and it came all the way through the team, all the way through from Clive to myself to Rami, and all the way through that supply chain. Now, I won't say there wasn't issues on the job. Of course there was issues on the job. I'm sure me and Clive had a couple of crosswords now and again, but it was forgotten. And the beauty of this project is There was no egos. There was nobody wanting to outdo anybody else. That unfortunately you see sometimes this part of the world. What it was about is nobody ever lost focus that the project was the biggest thing in all of this, and that's the difference. That's the secret formula. That's the magic dust is people, and the guys have alluded to it, and that's what's made it successful for us, for Rami, for TNT, and for the client, I would suggest.
It almost sounds like you found Getafix's magic potion that can be shared with everybody. But Darren, the follow-up question to you would then be this. In a market that is highly competitive, where you have extremely low margins, can this working relationship, can this magic formula, this magic potion be also replicated on other projects?
Most definitely does. Most definitely will. Now, we can go into a project very cheap, but what's the outturn cost? What's the outturn cost in disputes? What's the outturn cost in delays? What's the outturn cost? So when we get clients as educated as we have with the client that we had here, and he understood that he was purchasing a tier 1 contractor, and his external cost was very similar to his internal cost, that's the answer. That there is the answer. So we need more of this. I think that is the secret.
Wonderful and well put. Basil, the next question comes to you in terms of the people who are going to the Aquaventure Waterpark. They're going to have so much more fun with these 28 new rides, but they don't understand the engineering feat that this is. Could you give us a little detail on the type of engineering that was involved in this in terms of the piping, the processes, the MEP and HVAC on this project?
Sure. Behind this great project and very big prestigious project, there were a great effort spent on the engineering. The coordination was the main challenge for us, since we have a huge amount of work of the piping, either it's a process piping or MEP piping. So as requested by Khan Sahib, JLW took the lead, and they've done all the engineering work for the whole MEP works and the process piping. We give the priority for the process piping, and we have coordinated the MEP pump rooms and services and all associated piping around it. And we took the decision as JLW to go to the Revit model, the 3D model, and it was worth to go for it, since we got the results at the end that we wanted from it. The 3D model, it's reduced the rework and eliminate the rework in the project. At the same time, give a high quality of installation. We got it through the good coordination at the 3D modules. And we have got the takeoff on all the materials, so there were no wastage or less wastage of material. And the material arrived at time. There were no shortage as well. And this also helped at the end with the technology of this project. The Revit model helped the client and Khan Sahib in the drones and the other elapse photos and all of that.
Basil, you mentioned that we chose. There was no choice. The company's been now operating for the last 5-6 years in the 3D world, and all the benefits that Basil just stipulated were the reasons why. And we worked well, I think, with the 3D modeling. It just allowed us to sort of coordinate very, very well.
Yeah, I think from up front that was a key to getting that coordination, as Basil has said, correct first time, because we didn't have the time to rework it, re-engineer it. It was crucial. While
on one hand we see that there is a need, like you said, for people to coordinate, for stakeholders on a project to coordinate with each other, it's also important for systems to cooperate with each other. There needs to be a sort of interoperability between the technology that's used by different stakeholders on the project. And I find it fascinating that, as Clive mentioned, you asked for, in terms of procurement, a large amount of material to come to certain sections of the site. But Basil also mentioned that there's no construction wastage despite that. We also see, like you said, there was a lot of planning and coordination between people on the project, but none of this would have been possible if technology, like Rami said, which ideally should be used across all projects, unfortunately isn't used rightly across all projects. It's important for technology to be used the right way at the right time with the right stakeholders. Clive, could you talk about how and which technologies in specific, you mentioned Revit and 3D modeling, but in addition to that, what other technologies were used and how this was crucial on a project of this scale?
Yeah, I mean, Basil mentioned BIM. I mean, BIM was crucial, like they said. For us, we're looking at an MEP point of view, but purely from a structural point of view, we had slides going through buildings. Clash detection of these sorts would not have been possible if we didn't have BIM and use BIM. The other technologies that we used was time-lapse video and drone footage. So I'll touch on time-lapse first. So time-lapse, we placed cameras strategically around the project property. We could live view these cameras from anywhere in the world, as is a web-based application. These cameras were fantastic. I mean, we planned our works, we monitored our production rates, we monitored our logistics using these cameras. I think it's definitely going forward, something that I would recommend on all my projects going forward. Drone footage, we had monthly drone footage that we used. We managed the external stakeholders that were not actively involved in the project. And then also, during our progress meeting, we showed these drone footage. It's fantastic to sit at a progress meeting and look at your drone footage and see what you've accomplished over the period. It's a fantastic tool, and again, highly recommend it for projects.
We spoke at length about processes and about technology, but Darren, as you rightly mentioned, none of this would be possible without people. And if anything, COVID has taught us, it is to place people right at the top of all the decisions that are being made across the project. And if we were going to the construction workers on site, the project managers on site, the site supervisors, right up the supply chain, how was health and safety prioritized, especially during a time like COVID?
Okay, so as we said earlier, within 2 months of being onto site, COVID started to abate, and we started to see the restrictions coming in. And more and above the restrictions, people were starting to get worried. People didn't understand what this were. The labour were worried, the labour were concerned. So it's constant reinforcement with them, with the knowledge that we were gaining at the time from the municipality, etc., and communicating that to the guys. And obviously the measures that we took with reducing the buses, maintaining social distancing, that kind of thing, it gave the guys confidence that we were looking after their welfare. We went pretty quickly to a 2-shift strategy. As soon as COVID hit, that gave the guys confidence. And then as we moved in towards the summertime as well, other things come into play, especially if you're working on the Palm. The Palm is a completely different environment to mainland Dubai. The humidity up there is horrendous. So we moved quickly into the summertime working, where we started introducing cold rooms throughout the site. So if the guys had just felt a little bit of heat exhaustion, or they felt a little bit drowsy, they would take 5 minutes. Water was there, they'd take 5-10 minutes in a cool room. And it even got to some points where we would walk around the site. I'd walk with Basil and would just say, this is just too much. We just stop the shift, and we might lose 2 hours, we might lose 3 hours, but we always put that above progress of looking after the guys, giving them the 2-3 hours. It was just too much. And throughout all of that, we still managed to maintain an accident-free site and achieve 2.8 million accident-free man-hours. So I think across the whole project, in the project team, it was a fantastic achievement.
It is, especially given the fact that you've given your labor time off to rest, and yet you have not used that as an excuse for a project to be delayed. In fact, it's being completed ahead of schedule, and it's causing ripples in the industry, if I can say so. Jason, before we conclude, the ball's in your court. What are your biggest takebacks? I know we've spoken at length about planning, about coordination, about having a good collaborative environment and focusing on people and the right technology. We've also spoken about getting people involved early in the process. But what are your biggest takebacks from a project like this? And what's your message to the industry saying, let's get better? There's more that we can do together. Yeah. There are better projects that we can deliver in a better manner.
I mean, look, people people has been mentioned several times throughout the discussion, and it is absolutely starts at that point. I think that Rami sort of alluded earlier on to the relationship that was developing between JLW and Cancer, and we were very keen to take JLW on board on one of our projects for the first time, and we knew the reputation of the strength in engineering. And yeah, I think Rami and I were discussing doing work together for probably 2 years before we actually managed to get this up and running. And so I think that was an important part for us as a main contractor. But being in the middle as the main contractor, it's absolutely the supply chain in one direction, but it's the client, and it starts with the client. As Darren alluded to earlier on, we've heard the words collaboration, absolutely got to be up there in terms of the takeaways for this project. An open and honest approach. The client did have variations. You know, Darren and the team, Basil and the team looked at those variations and found ways to work them into the budget and into the program. It's an open and honest approach from the client. Rami had some problems with procurement of materials. That was put on the table. So I think the success of the project is down to the stakeholders, from main contractor in the middle to the client to Clive and his team, in terms of driving that forward and dealing with some of the other stakeholders that weren't in our control, the slide installer, the landscaper. And everybody had that one objective, and Darren captured it quite well earlier on when he said, the one objective is the project. It's not JLW, it's not Canseb, it's not Turner and Townsend or ICD or Atlantis. The key goal is the project and the success of that project. And fortunately on this one, everybody got the message. Everybody was on song and everybody drove towards that goal. The takeaway and the message, I guess, is that it can work. And I say to our clients, appoint the right contractor, appoint the right supply chain, appoint the right project managers that have those values, and we can make the project successful.
This works, and this can be scaled across the industry. It's not weakness if you prioritize people, and it's not weakness if you prioritize the project. It is possible to work in a collaborative environment and still deliver ahead of schedule and within budget. Isn't that a great message to send to the industry and a great way to wrap up this discussion? And that's a wrap on this episode of Let's Talk MEP. For more such discussions with experts in the industry, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe below. Thank you for joining us here today. That's all for now, and until next time, goodbye.